Hello everyone, this is Kamui on High Heaven server, Old Gamers Clan. Yesterday, I cleared 240 Challenge Rift, and I wanted to share with you some of the strategies I used. Some of those strategies are Necromancer specific, some of them are not. They're just for any class. Hopefully you can use the information you find in this video to clear some of the Challenge Rifts that you're facing right now. Let's start with the Paragon build. My choices in my Paragon build were specifically to increase my damage as much as I can. So I took all the damage nodes from Vanquisher, from Survivor, um, Treasure Hunter, Gladiator. I liked PvP, so this was a critical tree to get. Soldier, damage, and moved on. Massacre, whoops, I skipped Mastermind. In Mastermind, I started here, not there, because you'll lose a lot of points if you don't. So basically, just get the resistance, get here and get the damage and move on. And then Duelist. This is one of my favorite trees by far. This tree, in this part, you get 2% flat increased damage. It works against anything in PvP as well. And then if you have this node, then your Bloodthirst and your Fury will stack up to 10 times. Basically, this gives you 10% increased damage, 10% increased crit, if you're not hit by any of your mobs. And if you get hit, then you get a static discharge, which will hit up to 5 enemies around you within 5 yards. So it's a pretty good tree if you're interested to try it. That's what I used, anyways. So that's the Paragon tree. Let's talk about the legendaries. So I'm using Maliku's Abnegation, Reverent Wand, Reverent Wind, Fire Allure, Proximal Fear, and Exhuman's Backbone. Those are combined specifically with the skills I'm using. So if you can see this, I'm using Bone Spikes, and Bone Spikes with Maliku's basically does a pulsing damage, and it's a continuous damage. And I'm also using Abnegation because it just gives a little knockback to the enemies, which will be very helpful if you're being chased or you want to control your enemies. I'm also using the Bone Wall. This is very critical. Combined with Exhuman's Backbone and Pyre's Allure. Basically, this creates a bone wall, um, summons a pillar of rotten corpse that knocks the target into the air, and it slows them down. And then if you hit it with your primary target, it has to be Soulfire. You ignite the bone wall and cause a lot of AoE damage to anything around it. It also slows the enemies, as I said earlier. And I'm using a regular shield, nothing specific, and the Wraith form. I'm specifically using Proximal Fear Pants, which fears your enemies. In terms of invocations, I have preferences, but unfortunately I don't have the correct invocations across all my pieces. I have to use the highest combat rating gear. I also, in terms of secondary, I'm using the highest greens. I would have preferred to use things that actually do something, but when it comes to challenge rifts, you should always go with your highest combat rating, period. I also want to show you my reforges quickly. So the most important thing that I want to point out here is that I'm using damage to demons across all my pieces. Um, the other ones are great to have, but I'm using damage to demons specifically on every single piece. If you have the max, then you have about 36% increased damage to demons. Otherwise, you're not gonna do enough output. Because when I was facing 240, as you can see right now. The damage reduction is around, was around last night 94%, which is quite high, meaning that any damage that I do to the mobs is reduced down to only 94% of what I could actually produce. So now it's at 90 because I gained a little bit more CR. So the strategy is basically that you grab the mobs, slow them down, and the more you group, the better. As you can see, I'm basically fearing them, which procs my chip. Just try to beat the timer. If you just go slow, you're not gonna beat the timer. So you wanna go as aggressive as you can, like this, and then fear, and now in this particular rift, find the corners where you can simply just keep going back and forth like this. Try to prevent them from doing any damage to you. Go again.
No, not yet.
Now they're all there, which is good. Just clear as much as you can. More. If you keep going with this rate, then you could potentially beat the timer. The boss, every boss at the end has a strategy to go with. If you're unlucky and you get a hard boss, or if you don't get a good rift, I strongly recommend that you just keep re-queuing until you get a rift that works for your strategy. As you can see, I just simply fear them and then group them and then slow them down and repeat. If you keep doing that, you're gonna clear as much as you can. Let's try to get a bigger this time. Okay, I usually try to not stop for yellows. They take a long time to kill, and I only stop when I have like either a huge group to go with to make most value for the time. There we go. We have a huge group. You can just control them and keep deleting. If you find a good altar, you could save it to the boss, especially if it's a damage boost. If it's a discharge, I would use it with clearing the mobs.
Upon me.
Keep in mind that every time you die, you lose time over time. So you want to minimize the death as much as you can.
I am renewed.
Don't be afraid to use your health potions if necessary. Here I have a boss. I don't have any specific.
Death is patient. My health is restored.
There's nothing special about fighting a specific boss. Like every boss is different in their abilities. This one just simply summons some the ground, which they hurt. You could try to drag it out. That's what I do usually. It hurts. It hits you.
No, not yet.
Pillar is still viable because it can also shield. As you can see, it's shielding me from the fire damage that it's spreading. This this blue fire basically slows you down, so you try to avoid it as well. Fortunately, you won't run out of space. And as I showed you earlier, my damage is based on continuous damage, so I don't have to stay and keep fighting the boss in melee range or anything like that. All I have to do is just make sure that I'm in the correct position and I have everything I need to keep doing damage to the boss from distance and stay alive. As the boss gets closer to 30%, it gains an additional ability. In this scenario, it's basically doing more AoE damage. You just want to stay as far as you can. Where it is. Still okay on timer, but it's getting tight. You should use your ultimate. So, cooldown. If you're lucky, you can combine it with other CDs like Bottle. In this scenario, I just didn't kill it as soon as possible. Oh, and now it splits, which is another ability it gains, which means it's getting desperate. There you go. 240 cleared. Corpse. So I didn't get any additional rewards because I already had it. I just wanted to show you how I did it. Yeah. So just to recap: Power Tree, get the most damage. With Forges, I used summons damage to demons, and I specifically kept queuing until I got demon challenge rifts. You could exchange this to undead, for example, and keep rotating until you get undead. It's up to you. But I also like demons because the world is full of demons in Diablo Immortal. Like raid bosses are demons, I guess. I'm not sure. Maybe they're elites. And I'm gonna point out one more thing. Let's look at the gems, legendary and normal gems. For red, I use damage. For yellows, I use potency. For blues, I use armor pen. That's it pretty much. There's nothing, there is no resistance, there is no health, and there's no armor. And for legendary gems, I'm using Chip. It works well with the fear because it places a curse on all my targets, which makes them explode for all the damage taken during fear dot. I'm using Hellfire, rank 10. I like it because it lines up well with Fear, Wraith, and Chip because it adds up to the damage if you can line it up. It's up every 20 seconds. I'm using Bloodsoaked Jade, which is a very honest gem. It just gives you flat increase in damage and speed. I use Howler, which I like because it also can stun and basically does a frontal damage to all the mobs. Based on the strategy you just saw, I just combine them all, group them up, and then do straight up damage and control with the pillar and the spikes. So this could also do a lot of damage, which is great. I'm using Seeping Bile, which is a great AoE damage bottle, which is great for like when I use the shield, it gives me a buff. So I usually just shield, Wraith in, and then Hellfire plus Curse from Chip. It just does a lot of damage to the groups that I'm targeting. You can see that if you go back in the video again. That's it pretty much. If you have any questions, please post them. If you like what you saw, please subscribe to the channel. And if you would like to see more videos that are informative to your needs, please share your ideas. What would you like me to talk about? There's a lot in this game, um, so I don't know exactly what to share. So you tell me what you're interested in, and I'll do my best to share it. Thank you for listening in and tuning in, everyone. Have a good one. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. Cheers.